Welcome to Writer's Way Podcast, the podcast where we step into the enchanting world of authors as we delve into their unique writing journeys and the captivating tales behind their stories. I'm your host, Jessica Wilkins. Today, we have very special guest, a woman whose life story is a testament to resilience and unwavering faith. She's a retired corporate sales leader who put her career down to be a domestic executive for her sons. She's also a champion for those without a voice, guided by her Christian faith and a deep sense of justice. She's written two powerful books, including a biography and a compelling memoir. So it's a book that invites us into a very private journey, shedding light on what it means to love someone deeply while navigating a complex and changing world. Please help me welcome the author of Walking on Eggshells, a couple's journey through transgenderism, Noreen Antao. Noreen, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Okay, so as ours, Noreen, your book is incredibly raw and vulnerable. It really takes us a lot of courage to put your life in a page like that. And I want to ask, what inspired you to share your personal journey with the world in Walking on Eggshells?
Well, Jessica, my desire to share my life experiences married to a heterosexual cross-dresser was the need to let women know that this really does exist. And sometimes as I didn't know about this, so it was definitely a journey. I do not want to put a wife through the anguish of suspecting her husband may be having an affair if she found women's lingerie, intimate lingerie, in their bedroom. And also to let women know that, hey, be prepared. Always look at the signs. Look at the signs I missed. And that's what I shared in my book, the different signs.
Okay. So your story, of course, begins long before the book events has been countered. Now,
Yes.
could you tell us a little bit about your childhood and how that time shaped your outlook in life and your relationship also?
Yeah, my childhood was pretty much okay, but I was raised by a dad who was drunk every night. He was abusive, and I think when I was a child, he was being treated for blood pressure. However, at the time, doctors were not aware of depression and alcoholism. And so, in a way now, as an adult, I feel sorry for him. But I had a healthy childhood outside my family life. At my house, it was almost like day and night kind of thing. So that's I involved ourselves a lot in church, and we lived in flats. And where I lived, Christians lived in one, like apartments kind of thing, and Muslims lived in a separate. I don't know how it got set up, but I think it got set up like that when the British colonies were in place. The kids from the flat all attended the same Catholic schools, the same cathedral for Mass, and most of us participated in sports, which kept us out of trouble. We grew up with missionaries from other countries, and we learned a lot about the Western culture. Our PE teacher was from the United States, and she was a nun, and her sister was our music teacher, also a nun. And so that shaped, they say it takes a village to raise a child, and that's exactly how I was raised. So I always had an outlet from the chaotic going on in my home.
Oh, such a life story it is, shall I say. Yes, and then your book, Walking on Eggshells, perfectly captures the feeling of living through difficult experiences as you've described. Now,
Yes.
how did you find the strength to navigate alcoholism, the revelation, right, of your husband's cross dressing?
Jessica, my strength always came from believing in Jesus Christ from a very young age. Because when the times my dad was drunk and I was so young and so afraid, filled with anxiety, not knowing what to do, and him yelling at all of us for no apparent reason, I used to call on the Lord for help. I used to lay in bed in tears and put my fingers in my ears, praying to God to make him stop because we needed to go to school the next day, and tears running down my cheeks, crying, please, please, Lord, make him stop. And so that was how I got through the abuse and the alcoholism at night, because that's mostly when he drank. Me in Catholic school, we had to go to church once a week on a weekday. So I went to confession once a week starting at the age of 6. The priest told me it was not necessary for me to come every week for confession. Maybe because he heard the same sins every week from me. I'm not sure. But, at that age, I didn't even know really what sin was. Growing up as a teenager and earning an income which my family desperately needed, I finally stood up to my dad and reminded him I was no longer afraid of him because I could support myself and my family. My husband's cross-dressing definitely weighed heavily on me. I won't lie about that. And most of the time it was because when my husband, Jason, was dressed as a female, I was always concerned someone would recognize. And I was always stressed when we went out in regular department stores, shopping. And I tried my best to be accommodating to him, but he was so joyful that I accepted him as he was, whereas all I felt was a severe gut feeling that this is not right for me.
You were such a young, brave soul. Maybe at that time, at that age, I'm still, having the girly feeling and then a childlike feeling. However, on your end, you're confessed. My God, how...
It's unbelievable. But you know what, though? I think my marriages were not God's will. I used my own free will to pick my husbands. And in spite of me using my own free will, God intercepted and made me strong and come out of my situation. And in fact, he pulled me out of the situations when things got really ugly. And I was not ready to give up because I believed in marriage and I believed I was married and I would die married. And the other thing is cross-dressers at the age of 40 or 40 plus have a hard time keeping their cross-dressing a secret. This urge to come out of the closet and make people accept them is so strong because they've had years thinking about this. They have years thinking about this, and so they expect society to just accept them. However, society really hasn't had years to think about this or to study this, and so it's very hard for friends, family, and others and churches and stuff to really accept it. It's now more accepted than it was at the time.
Yeah, I agree. So in that case, Noreen, what are some signs or the early signs you wished you had noticed in your relationship?
I should have paid more attention right from the very start when my kids were young. Mm-hmm. It was a Halloween day. It was one Halloween. I noticed how comfortable Jason was dressed as a woman. He wore was walking around in 4-inch tall women's stilettos. And he was taking the kids out trick-or-treating. and he felt very comfortable, and they were gone for quite a while. Came up
Oh.
against the neighbor who was dressed as a gorilla, and the guy told him, he said, "Man, you got some guts. I could never dress as a woman." And you know what? I mean, he took it as a compliment, and I took it like, wow, you went out in the neighborhood dressed as a woman, and you're bragging about how good it felt. Cross-dressers are told that they are not supposed to just come out without the permission of their wives or significant others. However, they do. And then they say it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission.
In letting out your shell, being a cross-dresser, that you need to have permission or to ask permission of someone first before letting it out. So I was quite...
Yeah, it's like you have to protect your wife and your children. Most cross-dressers will go out at night and they wear their regular clothes, men clothes, and then they go, whatever event they're attending, they go into the bathroom and change in their women apparel.
Oh.
My cross-dresser did not do that. He was so bold to come out as a woman in the neighborhood. And so, of course, everybody recognized him as my husband. But at that point, he was so arrogant, he thought he didn't care what the kids and I felt or how we were humiliated by him coming out like that, because he felt he was just going to do it, and we had to accept it. So, and that's not normal for all cross-dressers. It's just particularly refers to my husband. Most cross-dressers are very concerned about their wives and families.
I agree that we should respect the boundaries also. And
Yeah.
I understand your feelings on that end, Noreen. Of course, being respecting your partner it's a must in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so they have counselors, there's psychiatrists at their monthly meetings that they have, and they all tell them, do not go out in public or out yourself unless you've discussed it with your spouse first.
Yes, I should agree on that also. Okay, so Noreen, let's touch on a topic that might be new to our listeners, and we're touching it as we're talking. For those who might not be familiar with it, how do you explain cross-dressing in simple, straightforward terms, since we're talking about cross-dressing?
All right. When I first met my spouse, a cross-dresser I did not even know what a cross-dresser was at the time. I was so naive. A cross-dresser to me is either a heterosexual man who feels he is female trapped in a man's body. His desire is to come out of the closet dressed as a woman. So when I gave and I say it as my permission, because he is my husband, and we took the agreement to become husband and wife, and so he had to have my permission, and I had to have his permission to do anything outside the marriage. And so I gave him the permission to join a heterosexual cross-dressers group so that he could figure out what was going on with him and why he had all these needs that were outside of our marriage. And so at these meetings, he and I were gradually coming to an understanding of what was required to be a cross-dresser.
And on building on that, you offer such compassionate advice on your book. So how can partners and couples openly and honestly talk about gender identity without shame?
The first thing, like any marriage, you have to be truthful. There's a lot of deception in cross-dressing couples, and usually it lies with the cross-dresser. You know, they don't want to tell you everything because they try to hide things. They go out at night or whatever, and don't want to let the wife know exactly what happened. And the wife is so, I don't want to use the word ignorant, but the wife is has no clue what's going on because they pack their clothes in a duffel bag or something, and they say they're going out to with the guys or whatever have you. So it's full of deception sometimes, and they get so good at lying that you feel as a wife, as a partner, you feel really bad to question them. But now the heterosexual cross-dressers, the married ones, the ones that have been married for years, now, of course, they have a very good relationship with their wives and they're very free to say anything. Now, I had that relationship with my husband, but then after we left the heterosexual cross-dressers group and he started going out with all these other groups, I immediately noticed a big difference in him. And so I would say, to your question, if you're an LGBTQ couple, your communication should always be first by truth. And if you suspect your crossdresser is not telling you the truth, then go with your instinct, because the relationship should be no different than or a conversation should be no different than you would have what normal couples would have. The crossdresser is great, and as far as shame goes, the crossdresser doesn't really feel shame, because this is something he's had years to think about while he was in the closet. It is the genetic woman who goes through the shame or takes on the shame as her part in this relationship.
Okay, so what message would you like cross-dressers themselves to take away from your story?
Let me see. I would like cross-dressers, and I think I've addressed this in the book, to always remember that genetic wives or significant others have given up a lot of their own life to be in this relationship. There would be no possible reason why their wives or significant others should be physically or mentally abusive to them. And when I say physically, mentally abusive to them, I'm referring to name-calling, putting them down, because when the cross-dresser comes out of the closet and is comfortable with themselves, they tend to be selfish and think about themselves. They forget that the wife is a beautiful woman, and they've tried to overshadow her by trying to get the best clothes, the best hairstyle, the best everything, because they have waited so many years for this, and their mode of dressing represents that of a teenager, because even though their bodies are not fit to fit into teenage clothes, because they forget that they are grown men trying to fit into these tight clothing and mini skirts and stuff, so they look pretty awkward. But if a wife tries to explain that to them, they don't want to take her explanation. They don't want to accept it. So when you see a crossdresser out, she looks like a man. So I had lessons at my home where the crossdressers came. I made sure they had the proper makeup and the wigs that fit them appropriately, so nobody outside would ever poke fun at them, make them throw insulting remarks at them because of looking like men.
Okay. Noreen, a central theme in your book is talks about faith, though it is clear that it has a huge part in your journey. How did your faith help you through the pain, and the, of course, incredibly difficult process of forgiveness.
Well, yes, I would say I have an empathy for people, and it does come from my faith. And when I look at it in that aspect, I look at Jesus on the cross, bleeding, been beaten, and he died for our sins. So who am I to look down upon anybody? And so that brings me to the empathy part. My faith has taught me how to be forgiving, accepting, and to treat people like I would like to be treated, you know? And I go a little to the extreme where that is concerned. My job is not to convert people to a different, to my lifestyle. My job is to instill them with the Word of God, and then I can only plant seeds, and then God takes it from there. And as far as the women are concerned, I want them not to become victims. I was a victim till I was in my 50s. I want them to understand there is a God that is going to get them out of that stage. There is, yeah, and there is a reason why God let me be in those stages I have been through, because it has helped me talk to other people and mentor other people who are going through physical, mental abusiveness by a spouse or anybody in any other situation.
I agree. And on that note, Noreen, was the community, or what was the support like from your church community?
My church is a Bible teaching church, and they do not, at least they do not talk about homosexuality. They consider it a sin, and you know what? I do anything I can for people. That's a part of what, as far as homosexuality goes. I suggest that people start reading the Bible.
Indeed, yes. You have so many beautiful insights, and on that stood out to me was the role your children had played. It seems like they gave you some a certain kind of courage in engaging this type of relationship. So how did they help you find the strength to move forward and, of course, build a new life for your family?
Yeah, my children actually were 7 and 9 when I got married, and they accepted my husband. At the time, they didn't know he was a crossdresser. They used to call him, I forget what the word was, metrosexual. They told me that, you know, when they found out he was a crossdresser and all that, they said they were in college, and they told me, they said, my oldest son said, Mom, I can't find fault in him because he always treated you with respect. He loved you, he loved us, he took care of us, you know, but he said, so he wasn't an alcoholic, he wasn't a wife beater, he was a good person. I can't say he was a good dad because I had 2 dads in my life, and none of them really showed me how to be a man. And he said, everything I learned from you. My ethics, my work ethics, my trust in the Lord. He says, there were so many things you taught me that I didn't. It was only when I was mentored by a man that I really knew what it felt like to be a man. So both of them were the same. They said, we can't find fault with him, but we do understand your reason for wanting to leave him. And we accept it. We will take on the responsibility to care for you and till you are able to stand on your own after this, you get over the sadness you have of an end to a marriage.
So, Noreen, for anyone listening who might feel stuck in a difficult relationship, what advice would you give them? And what is the most important thing that you hope women in similar situation, or anyone, not only to women, who feels trapped, take away from your story?
First, I would tell anybody in a situation, in a difficult relationship, I would say lift your concerns to the Lord, because I'm a big believer of that, and ask for what you need. Don't feel bad, even if you want money. Put a number to it and ask the Lord for it. Because if you want to move away from the relationship, ask the Lord for what money you need to start again. And ask Him on one day. The next day, you keep thanking Him as if you have already received that. Now, if you don't have faith in God, then don't waste your time, or don't waste God's time. You just have to believe that He will provide you what you ask for. And every day after that, you thank Him as if you have already received. And believe me, I have had so many times when I have become desperate and I've asked, and I have gotten what I asked for, not in my timing, but in His timing. And then, yes, and if things become so difficult where you feel your children are in danger, which is where I was in my first marriage, or they being hurt by your spouse, call the authorities immediately, because you don't want to take a chance. You think you know this person and he wouldn't do something like that, but you don't know for sure. So take care of that and make sure you get out of the danger. And I talk to women in similar situations. Tread gently. Please tread gently. Do not ignore signs of cross-gender tendency. Now, you may not have a problem, being in a relationship with transgender, which is great. But I would ask you to do not ignore the signs. And some of the signs would be the feminine style of walking, enjoying hosting dinners at home way too much, planning the menu and cooking the meals by himself, wearing your girlish apron while cooking.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. See, that's what I say. Cooking while cooking. Talking to your girlfriends a lot more than talking to their husbands. Church events, hanging with the girls more than the men, not having a lot of male companions or friends, hanging out in a group of women. He's not trying to pick up the women. He just feels like he's one of the women, one of the girls.
Yes.
Or giving advice to women about makeup and clothes and everything. That's something you need to be concerned about.
Yes, I agree. I guess that's a very easy sign.
Yeah. And just because he's a firefighter doesn't mean he's not a crossdresser.
He is?
Mm-mm. Just because he's a firefighter doesn't mean he's not a crossdresser. We have presidents of companies and financial officers, CEOs and companies that are cross-dressers. They do that initially to get away from the stress of their jobs.
I agree. I agree on that, Noreen. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and then, of course, Noreen, your story has been such an incredible journey. Of course, I am so grateful for your honesty and vulnerability to have the courage of letting out in this interview. And as we wrap up, what's next for you as an author? And do you have any other books in works, or are you focused on something else?
No, my goal is to set up a website for me and have a little blog or something where people can write and start a group chat where people can write in and have a community group and ask for advice, not advice, but just explain what the issue is, and if people that in the group that have been through that can offer their opinion and eventually get psychologists and counselors involved so they can offer some kind of if they don't want to make it public, is what I'm saying. It would be I don't like the word secretive group, but it would be a group where no woman will be tolerated if she's bashing her husband. Because this is not a bashing group. Cross-dressing is really an illness and should not be treated like you can get on there and bash your husband or boyfriend or anything like that. Because I didn't tolerate that, and I did not bash my husband, in a really a cruel way. I did it by writing this book because I felt there were so many themes and things like that needed to be known to women like me who were naive, inexperienced, and were never, ever thought that something like this would hit my life.
Yeah, such a nice plan, Noreen, and your life is so incredible. And of course, with your plan to have that website, of course, sooner or later, maybe it will come true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that hard to create a website nowadays, and you can.
Yeah, it would have to be a website that is encouraging for women, helpful for women, and provide some type of service where women can be helped if they decide that they've decided they are at the end of their rope. I did not divorce my first husband because I didn't think I made enough money to support my children on my own. However, it was very surprising when I did get the divorce. I realized I made a lot more than him, and I could support all of us. So, see, women you're so battered from the nagging, the yelling, the screaming. At work, you're treated like you are a smart person, and you come home, you're treated like somebody who doesn't know anything because of all the negative stuff that's been said to you.
Okay. So, Noreen, thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, and it has been an absolute privilege for us to hear your story. Okay? So, now, that was Noreen, author of Walking on Eggshells. We hope you were inspired as we were, and then thank you for tuning us, and be sure to check out Wearing on Eggshells on, of course, online or physical bookstores. You can buy it there, and then join us once again for another heartfelt conversation on Writer's Way podcast. Until next time, stay inspired and keep reading. Bye for now.